Uh, last meetup of 2017. It's been a great year for Enterprise Scrum. We have accomplished very many things that it was even hard to dream of. So there's ongoing classes right now announced. There's been a couple of classes in London. There's been several classes here in Chicago. There's been lots of private classes with very large companies very interested in doing business agility. The classes and the framework keep getting better. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you guys the latest and greatest advances in Enterprise Scrum. We're labeling that version 4.0. And so just as a quick reminder, we are a education provider, training, consulting, coaching for all things Agile, but our specialty really is business agility. That's really where we shine the most. And so I'm going to start with my traditional standard pitch about why we need this stuff. Business cycle was 75 years, 50 years ago. Now we are approaching 7 years. So it takes 7 years from to start something, announce it to the market, reach the top of its potential, and fade out. Half of the companies from the Fortune 500 are gone since the year 2000. 75% of the S&P is forecasted to change in the next 10 years. These are numbers that should scare any CEO. Also, these are numbers that should make you want to start a new startup. When 75% of the S&P is scheduled to change, there's a lot of opportunity. If we ever call the US the land of opportunity, this is it. We created near 100 of these unicorns out of 170 worldwide, and looks like we're going to be creating a lot more. Despite all the other things that are going on, we are doing great. Our economy keeps growing. Some people complain that it's only 3% or so forth. We're at $18.5 trillion economy and growing. Lots of innovation anywhere in the US. And so it used to take 75 years, 50 years ago from going from question mark to start to cash cow and then dog. This is the old ECG matrix. So it used to take, if you had an idea, then you made it work. You became where others came to compete with you, and eventually you exit the market. It used to take 75 years. Now it takes 7, which means that you're going to have a lot of new ideas, try to hit some home runs more than you did before, and concentrate much less in competitive markets. Your way of competition is going to be bring more ideas and make them work fast. If you look at the winning companies today, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Salesforce.com, all of these are companies that are doing that. The models that we have for winning in the market are now changing. He who brings more opportunities and he who hits a few more home runs is the winner of the market, not whoever has more market share in a competitive market. Therefore, you need to have agile everything, right? And so we came up with a business agility definition in our working group at Enterprise Scrum. By the way, guys, I normally don't say this kind of thing, but I'm very proud of this. Why? That I know of is the only business agility definition that I found so far. And so we created one, collaborating among some of the people that are here in the audience collaborated to create this. Some people outside of this group and Enterprise Scrum really like this thing. Why? Because it's all about adapting quickly and effectively to all forms of change to deliver maximum value in customer experience. What kind of change are we talking about? Well, we are surrounded by massive change all over the place. from, and especially parting from customer expectations. Now the customer, as we say, is the center of the universe. We have a lot of disruption waves, agrotech, media tech, fintech, insurtech, tech. I mean, all of these are things are disrupting the market. We have new emerging business models where people don't compete on the same level field as before in competitive markets. We are reinventing the markets for the models themselves. You know, we have Uber, Netflix, you know, Airbnb, and so forth. We have new management techniques that give you more competitive advantage. We have emerging, growing markets. We have changes in technology, politically, economic, social environment, changes in the expectation of the workers themselves. How much faster do people change jobs, especially if you're in a disruptive field?
Every 2 years.
Much faster than before. The expectation for the companies is to try to attract the best minds and keep them there, because otherwise you will go somewhere else. Regulatory, we have 10 times more regulation than we did before. The problem per se is not that we have more regulation, is that we don't have a way to enforce it in an agile way to make sure that it's enforced in a better way. So we build a model for business agility that its root is the culture. I will be the first one to admit that even a framework like Enterprise Scrum would completely fail if you don't have a cultural basis. It's pointless to do any framework, Enterprise Scrum or any other framework, if you don't have the right culture aligned. That generic framework allows you to do generic agile management, a little bit of agile leadership in an agile organization design, so that you can support things like agile hardware, agile software, agile customer, agile marketing and sales. That supports a customer segment. Customer segments are business units. If you're lucky enough, at some point you will get to agile governance. I think I put that in red for a reason. I think it's going to take a while to do that. How agile are most boards? They're not. Most agile happening is not happening in the boards. If you have a lot of parallel activities, agile HR, agile finance, those are harder to get, right? They may help you, but they're not absolutely necessary. You have agile transformation, agile innovation, agile portfolios. All of that is really what you need to have or reach business agility. You may be able to live, let's say, without agile HR or finance. You might be able to do this with a lot of agile governance. In the future, we hope to have more of that. So when did this thing that we call business agility started? How many of you guys know Dave Anderson from Kanban World, right? Dave claims that he was doing business agility with Kanban at Microsoft in the late 90s. I believe him, right? I know him well. So for me personally, it started in 2001. I was the first CEO to manage a company, a full company in an agile way in Governance Incorporated. This is what I do most of the time. I teach other people to manage their companies in an agile way. And so we started getting more and more traction along the way. Companies like Salesforce.com, where we have trained hundreds of people. Companies like Cars.com. As of late, very many companies around Chicago. CME, for example, who is doing more agile business unit management. A lot of the banks and insurance companies in the area, most of them are doing business agility transformation. Here's the problem, they don't know exactly how. So here's where a way to do general agile management can help. We define Enterprise Scrum as a framework to deliver the most business value in the shortest amount of time. A lot of people say that there's a lot of frameworks. Yeah, but think about that for a second. What is a framework? What is truly a framework? It's an incomplete structure that you configure to instantiate an Agile management solution. I'll ask you a question. We say that Scrum is a framework. Where is the guidance in the Scrum guide of what are the configurable parameters and how to configure even something like Scrum? No, nowhere to be found. Same thing happens with other so-called Agile frameworks. If you look at most of what is out there, it's primarily for product development, less that safe are frameworks for product development, and they have very little guidance to configure them, very little parameters to configure. We are exactly the opposite. We have explicit parameters to configure. We have examples of how we create instances for different types of management. I claim that Enterprise Scrum is the only true framework. It has explicit parameters. There's guidance about how to provide instance. And the latest and greatest instance is to do business agility. So that's what we're going to show you guys here. What has been the changes in the framework? As a few of you guys that have taken the Enterprise Scrum classes, we have this concept of instances, where we have the instance of Enterprise Scrum for marketing and sales, the instance of Enterprise Scrum for software development, for Agile software development, for compliance, for portfolio management, for transformation is generic Agile management that can be configured for an instance. We also have the roles, business owner, coach, and a team. We don't call it product owner. It is still Scrum-like. Still, we have the guidance or leadership prompt to identify the future in the business owner. And then we provide the support for the teams, the guidance for how to follow into the process, into the enterprise process through a coach. The team are the people that do the work. Just like in Scrum, we have a balanced metrics. So not only do we track things like our productivity-oriented, like velocity, but we track things like customer experience, employee experience, user experience. So more things that benefit people. We have our information architecture. We have BLI types. The BLI types are really the secret of how we work in Enterprise Scrum. We have action modifiers. In product development frameworks, we have the constraints of doing work for development, for product development. Here you can test controls, you can market items, sell items, you can make decisions. All is configurable through action modifiers. You can have single piece of work, or you can have collections or workflows. You can have scheduled into a cycle work, or you can have things that are unselectable. I'll give you one example of all this. If I am doing compliance management and I have to retest internal controls periodically, do I need to bring again and again the same PBIs in Scrum? No, I can just bring a collection of BLIs with internal controls, and then I can make it a repeatable BLI. Therefore, I can agilize compliance management or mutual fund management or business unit portfolios or customer segment portfolios. That allows you, that language allows you to agile management a lot of different things. I'll give you another example. If I'm in real estate sales, can I select which properties are going to be sold in the next cycle? No way, right? Therefore, they are a time attribute that we call unselectable. You don't know which thing is going to sell, but of course, you can track metrics like customer experience, employee experience, and velocity, in this case of items sold. We have the concept of debt, so not only technical debt, other types of debt. On top of that, which was basically everything we had in version 3.4, we have added complex instances. So now we not only have an instance, for example, for agile management, let's say, of a company, we mix agile management with agile portfolio and agile transformation in a single instance of Enterprise Scrum. That's what allows you, you can see here on the sides, the company management through a portfolio of business units, or the business unit management with a portfolio of customer segments, is a complex instance. It's agile management, agile portfolio, and agile transformation all in one instance. The beautiful thing about that is that it's the same people that are doing the work in the trenches. They are doing the management, they're doing the transformation for themselves, maybe guided by a handful of agile coaches. We know this is possible from a few stories from the field. It doesn't take an army of coaches and consultants if you can guide people into doing it for themselves. By the way, do people want or enjoy being transformed by somebody else? How do most of us prefer to transform? Co-creating our own future. In fact, I claim, or I take it this far, it's not going to work any other way. People try it, and every 14 months, people start rejecting that stuff and say, I'm tired of being pushed. I'm tired of being trying for someone to force me to do something. Hey, I don't understand. I didn't co-create. I don't want to do it. So there is a way to get more engagement into the agile management, into the transformation. When people start doing it for themselves, they find a purpose that they can align with. That is really the core of the cultural side. We also have now a depth and issue canvas. It is very clear when you're working on the field, and this ties into agile leadership, right? That the problems that you have, let's say for agile marketing and sales, there are going to be issues that the team cannot resolve. Who resolve issues and impediments for the team? The team. The team if they can, right? But what if it's out of their control? What if it's out of their scope? What if they need budgeting or more people or things that they budgets? Who resolves that for them? Typically a lead. So this is where the opportunity is for the leadership, whoever is supporting that team, to come in periodically and start reviewing what issues do we have. So it's embedded into each one of these instances some of the agile leadership. So we found a way to put agile leadership in each one of these instances. Why? Because it's inevitable. To resolve some of these issues, to resolve some of these impediments, you need some kind of agile leadership. What is agile leadership, by the way? It's a way that frequently and periodically leaders are involved to support the teams that are trying to do agile anything. If you don't have that, will agility ever work? Very difficult. That's another thing that we found out, right? It is better to include it from the get-go. Don't add it as an add-on thing. It's just part of the system. That was one of the things that is happening in Scrum. I'll ask you a question. Does the Scrum framework has embedded agile leadership? No, that's one of the problems, right? One of the problems is that there's no defined interaction by the leaders. So this is one of the things that we added to the dev issue canvas, and the participation of agile leadership support now in the roles, in the actions, the issues, and the devs. We added a couple of parameters just to know when you are required to give definition of done or where you're giving definition of done. There's some of you guys, like Michael Herman, that has studied the parameters list, know that we have, 150 plus parameters. These are just two added parameters that we added. I'll ask you a question just to wrap this section up. When do we typically give definition of done when we do user stories? At user story refinement, we give a tentative definition before we start a sprint. Where is the last time that we are allowed to give definition of done? Before you go to review, right? If you go before you go to production, hopefully before you finish the sprint, right? And so, so this This gives you an idea of some of the things that you can configure. There's many other parameters, right? And so we find a way to convey these parameters in a more literary way, if you will. This is the Enterprise Scrum Definition 4.0. All of this is what is included. But now let's switch into, well, I'll give you some of the numbers. We haven't done this survey this year, but we're about to do a survey in our Enterprise Scrum group in Facebook. We're going to do another survey as to what things we have seen Agileize with Scrum or Enterprise Scrum. And so I bet you this number for business agility transformation is probably going to go way higher, but we have some 50 things here that we have done. And so we have about 114 certified business agility coaches worldwide. We have about 6,000 people with live training in Enterprise Scrum. We've done these trainings in the US, UK, Germany, Mexico, and now soon to be in Singapore. We had a scheduled class, but it got canceled, right? So this is growing. We hope that by the end of 2018, we have a lot of countries, a lot more certifications. I will say this up front if you're worried about the certification game. I don't personally think that a 2-day class is going to make you the greatest and the latest and greatest business agility coach. But the only way that we found to sell education is through the certification game. I mean, I apologize to you guys, right? Especially to some of you that don't believe this should be a certification. But since everybody else sells education that way, we have little choice. If we don't do it, it'll be a setback in the market. So, again, but what I believe is that education and ideas can make a difference. So that's why we play this game, more from an educational perspective, right? So let's take a look at the other side of things. By popular demand, and people have been asking for this, when I talk about business agility, people are asking all the time, Mike, where is the Enterprise Scrum Business Agility Guide? So we are going to be releasing that as well with the Enterprise Scrum Definition 4.0 in what I'm about to present to you guys, which is how we taught this class that took place yesterday and today. I will tell you the story as to what happened to Enterprise Scrum Business Agility. In other words, the instance of Enterprise Scrum to do business agility. And so you saw this model before. This is the model that supports business agility. It's based on Agile Portal, the Enterprise Scrum framework, which allows you to do generic Agile management, leadership, and design. That supports the verticals, hardware, software, customer service, marketing, and sales, and supports what we Agilize one customer segment at a time. What happens when you Agilize customer experience? When you Agilize the customer segment and optimize customer experience, what happens? What happens to companies that do this? Companies that optimize the way customers feel. They become more successful. We may not call it business agility at Amazon, but it sure is very customer driven, right? Customer experience is very high. How about Salesforce.com? They focus the entire company on customer experience. So it's all about, in the 21st century, getting more customer experience. That's what we really want to do with this framework in these instances. I'm going to tell you the very high-level picture and then dive into the details, right? So we're going to start doing Agile management for the company. We're going to start inventorying business unit portfolios and within each business unit, customer segment portfolios. Then we're going to prioritize this list of customer segments and we start agilizing the Agile loop to deliver more customer experience. That may take agilizing marketing and sales, agilizing compliance. In some companies, and I won't give the names of the companies, right? It may take from the time that they get a request to the customers to the time that they write the software, the hardware, and announce it in a marketing announcement and release it. In some companies, take a guess. How long does it take for a large company to do this?
3 years. 10 years.
Years. Well, in some of the companies that we're working with, it takes about 18 months. And they're really looking hard at this because their competitors may do it in less time. If it takes you 3 years, well, anything will help, especially if your competitors are agilizing themselves, right? So this is the pressure about agilizing things at a customer segment level. It may involve very many things: agilizing customer service, agilizing marketing and sales, agilizing software development, taking a look at the whole value stream in agilizing that. We typically use things like lean techniques, right? It doesn't have to be just relying on agile. And so that's the game that we're playing at a high level. And so all of that needs to be supported by cultural leadership management, innovation, portfolio management, and organizational design. We'll give a full example of all of that. And so I like to take, hopefully, a subset of what we call Agile. I'll ask you a question, guys. Why do most of the Agile things fail? Engagement, passion, ownership, pride. Can you really do Agile without engagement? That's the conclusion that I reached. These are the kind of things that I've been saying for a while, right? I finally put some words into that. I have a really hard time motivating someone that they don't believe in what they're doing. If I don't believe in what I'm doing, and I think it's pointless and senseless, it's very hard to motivate them. Similarly, if I'm not doing something that I want to do, try to motivate me. I don't like what I'm doing. I'm going to try to waste my time doing something else because I hate my job. How about working with people that you like and respect? Can you really be highly productive and really reach agility if you're working with people you don't like? Nearly impossible. These are the conclusions that I reached, and I put pen into it lately. For me, it's almost literally impossible to motivate someone that if they don't believe in what they're doing, they don't like what they're doing, they don't like the people, no amount of posters or Agile classes or Agile coaches or management consultants are motivate people like that. And agility with low engagement is terrible. We've seen the result, it fails again and again. The expectation is here, and then people get maybe a little bit better than they used to get. Yeah, but what we want is to have that area where it's high energy, high engagement. In other words, an area that resonates with people. Don't invite everyone. Invite highly capable people that can resonate and really want to do and participate in that. I'll give you one example, and very many leadership teamwork experts are looking at this. They say the company to look at right now is Tesla. Why? What's happening at Tesla? If I take some people that are working at Tesla, what is very likely that is happening there?
Are you talking about on the assembly line where they're being armed?
Probably not, right?
Okay.
Probably on the creativity side, right? But some of these people are highly engaged. They truly believe on what they're doing, right? At least in the creativity side. And so that is really what we should take from this. In the larger space of agility, only some agility has high energy engagement. That's the agility that I'm interested in. And so we're going to put a lot of different things into this Agile loop. Really easy. That's the core of the framework. We're going to plan, collaborate, then we're going to review the stuff and take the feedback and improve, right? I took some of the things that Alistair Coburn has So we're going to plan, collaborate, deliver all at once, value, review it, reflect on their feedback, and then improve. And so that is our basic Agile loop, right? For doing what? So what we're going to do to get business agility, we are going to start with Agile management, and then we're going to pick up a scope, company level, business unit, or one customer segment. Ideally, we prefer that companies look at the bigger picture. But that's not always possible. Some companies say, Mike, rather than looking at the 23 business units, we already picked up one. Okay, fine. We start from that, right? Some places you go and they tell you, let's start with the customer segment. We have a big problem or we have a big gain if we agilize that. That's okay. Again, we prefer this story is never going to be the same from one place to the other one. That's why we allow some flexibility and, if you will, use a framework for that. Then we are going to inventory the customer segments, and we're going to add them to the Agile management of the company business unit or customer segment. That will refocus the company now in terms of looking for customer experience. That is a change, mandatory change, if you will, not looking at profit centers and processes in financial ratios. Look at what is the customer experience of your customer segments. Why? Because if you maximize or optimize that, all things good will come to you. Eventually you get more revenue, eventually you get higher profitability. And lastly, we are going to take or a prioritized list of these customer segments, and then we are going to suggest agilizing these customer segments. The way I look at business agility is one customer segment at a time. Once we put an agile loop for optimizing the agility of a customer segment, then all good things start coming to you. Typically, as we do in all other enterprise Scrum instances, we're going to put things in our enterprise Scrum board. Our Scrum board has a vision and initial value list just to help you out seeing the whole process. And then you take a canvas full of work and you start doing the work until you get it done. But we're going to do that at the portfolio level first. So we're going to start allocating, identifying business units, each one of them which will report their customer segments, and then we'll start measuring to benchmark. It's always a great idea to benchmark what is the customer experience level before the transformation. Before you do anything else, start measuring that so that you can benchmark after the before and after picture, if you will. You don't really care about the absolute numbers. You're really looking for the improvement. So what's our vision? To agilize our customer segments and deliver maximum value in customer experience. How does the company look as we have more business agility? Well, we get more satisfied customers, eventually lagging indicators like more revenue, more profit, and their employee experience will come. Which company do you know right now that is doing that? I'll give you a couple of examples. How about Salesforce.com? How many of you guys know someone that works at Salesforce? How do they like their company?
The Agile coaches,
They love it, right? Everything at Salesforce is done through something called Adaptive. Adaptive essentially is a flavor of Agile management, heavily similar to Scrum, right? The story at Salesforce is that back in 2007, they had a problem with quality and delays in the releases. They brought Scrum to fix that problem. After they solved that problem, they started promoting some of the managers to different positions. And they brought the young managers, brought their trusted management technique to other places. They made this derivative called Adaptive, right? Again, I have trained hundreds of people at Salesforce. Everything done at Salesforce is managing a customer segment. They take the feedback and they improve the product that way. So it's all driven. They only grew 17-fold in the last 10 years, right? So that's my sales line these days. You want to be like Salesforce. What do you do after that? you start taking some of the business units, identify the customer segments, and then start transforming them one at a time into higher customer experience. So this is really the complex instance that I was telling you. You take management, portfolio, and transformation all in one enterprise Scrum instance. You can take the company as a scope, a business unit, or a single customer segment. It doesn't matter where you start. If you start optimizing things, you get all of the advantages of agile management, right? And so you start by just managing agile management decisions, financial support, monitoring the company and business unit portfolio. Most likely companies are already doing that. While you're putting this in agile loop so they get used to this agile management, then you start taking at a business unit level decisions, financial support, monitoring business units in the business unit portfolio. Eventually, you start deciding which customer segments are to be transformed. The same is true when you build software, then in story. What happens if the first transformation to business agility failed? Well, you didn't bet the whole farm. You took a limited radius of explosion, right? And so it didn't work out. The promise is that if you fail, you will not have lost anything. You just didn't agilize things. It didn't work out, right? But you have little risk of things going really bad. So we choose our customer segments more on what has the highest business value, what is feasible, the same way that you would prioritize a product backlog, the same way that you prioritize the value list for what customer segments go first. One of the key things is to find out how are you currently organized. If you're organized already by customer segments, and some companies are already like that, it's a lot easier. What if you're organized by a large, powerful hierarchy of departments? Would that be easy or hard? That would be extremely hard, right? You're cutting across different departments and looking at a customer segment. So how much cultural assignment do you have? What is the size and cost of transformation? We'll get some pointers into that. What is the budget for the transformation? How much leadership support do you have? All of those things are good parameters to look at to what customers to agilize. If you want to take it into opportunity, you have to look at where is your position in the BCP matrix, what is the market share, the potential market growth. You can metrics that we have in the portfolio, right? If you want to take it to that level, you're really looking for an opportunity. So I'll ask you, what if you are in a business unit in a blue ocean strategy, which expected market growth is a disruption wave? Would that be a good opportunity to agilize things? It would be, right? What if I'm in an existing market, which is a competitive market, it's a red ocean strategy, it's a red ocean market in a competitive market, and it's a technology that is fading away? Would that be worth agilizing? No, it's a dead dog almost, right? And so you wouldn't worry too much about agilizing that. So you would choose your opportunities based on parameters. It's a lot easier to start greenfield if you have a startup or a new business unit in a company. It's a lot easier to go that way. If you have a growing company, that may be easier than an established company. So that's the problem with established business units, with established customer segments. They have a lot of cultural inertia. Transforming that, hopefully, we say it's possible, but you know it's going to be an uphill battle, right? It's going to need maybe even just gradual changes for improvement, but it's going to be much harder to do something bigger, right? That's what we see in the companies. Even then, you will rank your opportunities that way, and hopefully you will have more or less probability of success. Same thing with dependencies. you try to choose something that has an independent customer segment with one or more value propositions, right? Second best choice is have a customer segment with multiple dependent value propositions. I'll give you one example of this. I was CEO of the governance, a compliance management company, where we had the same compliance management system for hospitals and clinics than for insurance companies. So now you have what we call a product or service platform. If you have dependent customer segments, then it gets worse, and then you end up with a customer segment platform. And so that's how you would choose your opportunities. Hopefully, greenfield independent, and then take your pick. This gets more complex, right? Established company with customer segment platform, that would be the worst part. Unfortunately, sometimes it's unavoidable. That's the hard problem to solve, and you got to tackle that, right? So, how about what do you do in the cycles? Well, you would take one customer segment at a time. As we said before, worst case scenario, we don't improve it. Now you know customer business agility is not working for you all that great. At the very least, you end up with a portfolio of customer segments and looking at things as customer experience. Hopefully, you can say there's little or no risk. The worst case scenario is no improvement. You can do this, and I will show you an example of this, with very little expense until you get to the agilizing of the customer segments. Well, that's going to cost you, depending on how much you want to improve. That may take a pretty penny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, how narrowly do you find you define the customer segment? So, for instance, like, say banking, they think of like large corporate banking, the mass market, consumers. Is it that course, or do you think
it is that course? It is that course. So you would ask the question, what are the customers that have similar needs? And that would immediately give you the answer, oh, that's a customer segment. Why should I treat it the same, or why should I treat them different? So that's exactly around the right way of thinking. You want to get successful and prove that it's working in your environment. That will build a wave of success, as anything we do in Agile, right? We try to get some early success so that we can have more of it. And again, if you fail, well, try to fail as fast as you can. Now you know you're not really good at that, right? So you may reconsider. But again, at very little risk. After that, you choose more customer segments. And it's essentially agile management. As you know, who of you guys already does or has done Scrum? This is no different than doing Scrum, except your PBIs are now customer segments. You really have a list, if you will, a prioritized list of customer segments, and that's what you are agilizing. That is the equivalent, if you will, to look at Scrum. Before I continue and give you a more detailed example, any questions at this point? So we're going to do just a one deeper example, if you will. I took some of the subsidiaries of JP Morgan Chase. They're advertised at the SEC, right? So you can take one of them and think, I am going to take one of these things and agilize it. So again, the point is, every time you make a choice, all business agility transformations look differently. That's why it's helpful to have a framework, right? You can create your instance, and you're going to have to create your instance. One really ugly thing that I can tell you is there's no concept for velocity in agile transformations. Forget it. Why? Because it's not the same people that are transforming customer segment after customer segment. And you know the rule, if they're not the same people, can I assume even a velocity? No, it's pointless. So forget about making projections with a customer segment velocity or something like that. That would be complete nonsense. This is a place where you do an agile transformation and you go at the speed internal speed of the customer segment. The only projections you can make, and you can make internal projections of that customer segment as it transforms. Why? Because it is the same people. So that's what we do in our business agility classes. We put some of that as parameters, right? So you would take a look at all of the customer segments across either departments or business processes or products and services. Sometimes you have to reintegrate them. That would be the case, for example, with banking and insurance, right? They have these disjointed products and services, and you will bring them back to have a common customer along the way, right? So in banking, it is typical to put high net worth, institutional finance, institutional insurance, retail insurance, institutional finance, so forth. And so you could have all sorts of institutional and retail customers. You will take the Agile management for that subsidiary and then build a portfolio of customers. Then start measuring the customer segments by the revenue profit growth. Most likely the company already does that. Most likely the company already does that kind of thing. If they don't, that would be really the beginning of doing business agility. It requires that you track these customer segments, right? Later, we are going to prioritize these customer segments. In this particular case, we give our high net worth customers higher priority over institutional customers in retail. That's not atypical, right? Then we start cycling, taking one customer segment at a time. We map the current state value stream. Then we map an incremental Kaizen burst, as we sometimes call it, of the future state value stream, and then create a value list to improve the value stream from current state to incremental future states. That's what we do, for example, in our business agility class. We had students today, and not sure if I should mention exactly what they're doing business agility transformation for, but we have people in the class doing this in the trenches. So this is how we do improvements, right? So we take a current state value stream, a future state value stream, and we map the value list that takes us there. The value list is what you put in the enterprise Scrum canvases. In this particular case, the business model canvas. Then you take it through the Scrum board, and then you take it from non-selected to the work and get things done cycle by cycle, right? What's the implication is that as you do cycles, you will have higher customer experience. You arguably are already measuring that. You will have maybe changes in the business model. I'll ask you a question. I have my own thoughts on this. What do people mean by digitization? Typically they mean digitizing the existing business model. What a horrible thing to do. Why? You may have a terrible business model and a terrible business process, and now you're just digitizing it. No. Hopefully you will innovate and you will change the way you do business. It's an opportunity to improve the business model itself. It's a way to reconsider everything underneath, and it will include everything included in the customer segment. It may involve marketing, customer service, software development, hardware, channels, compliance, and so forth. I really should take the digitization out of here. Really, should be digitization with innovation, if you want to say it that way, right? And so, what are our conclusions? Build one customer segment, agilize it, build some confidence, start a wave of success, move on to agilize other customer segments, move on then to agilize other business units. If you do it right, as you can see from this model, business agility is not a project. Business agility is not a program. Business agility is the future of company management. It's not a thing on the side or a project it's just the way we're going to manage things. So thank you for coming to the presentation, guys. Again, this is really exciting because it paints a picture of agilizing an entire company, giving you the opportunity to agilize everything underneath. Very excited about a lot of the opportunities that we're presented with. Here in the local area, there's 5+ companies very serious about doing business agility, and we are getting involved in more and more of these business agility transformations. Any questions at this point?
So you've gone through 4 versions of this. What do you think the biggest learning is, or I guess the biggest surprise in this version versus the very beginning, in your opinion?
From this version to the previous one, is the ability to tell a unified story from beginning to end. So before this version, we had, agile company management, agile transformation separately, agile portfolio separately, and now it's one story that involves different levels of company. But in this case, company management, business unit management, customer segment management, all in an agile way. It's hard to tell where agile management, agile portfolio, and agile transformation stop and begin. It's all combined all at once. Any other questions?
You differentiate, a lot of companies go through, they'll have somebody come in and they'll pitch them, we're going to do an agile transformation for your company, right? And then they come and focus on just the IT side, because they're not really have a clue how the actual business operates. They'll come in, do some DevOps, and then they'll be gone in 6 months or a year or 2 years. How do you, when you approach a company or a company approaches you, right? A lot of times they may be finding you by Googling agile transformation, for example. How do you explain to them the difference, right? Because business agility is the missing link to having successful agile transformation environments. How do you get them to understand the importance of bridging that gap to be a truly agile organization, not just we have an agile IT department, but we think we're agile?
So a really good question. What we're doing with some of the prospects and customers that we have is we give a 2-hour to 4-hour leadership introduction to the concepts of business agility. In other words, really making them understand that this is not about agilizing software. It's really about agilizing the way you manage. Understanding is possible. It's possible to, take an executive and show them what agile management is outside of software, if you will. Unfortunately, and just like you said, there's a lot of confusion. One of the things that we try to do is, one of the purposes of this is really educating people as to what is business agility and obviously provide a way to get it.
Just a quick question. Okay, it's like kind of the normal MO, right? It's like what transformation is. It's like most of the organizations are, right? It's like they're project based. So then it's just like, it's like the common misnomer that I'm running into now. It's like people are trying to go from project based to product based, right? Which is not that, right? That's not the direction we want to be going. Really, it's about customer segmentation, which may or may not align to products, right? In these organizations. So do you run in? It's like, how do you run into that? It's like, how do we change the conversation from going from project to product and jumping from project to customer segment?
I think you talk about the things that are interesting to them. I think you talk about, you link this better customer experience will give you higher revenue and it will give you higher profit, right? Regardless whether you are using software or not. In other words, I think if you take it back to business terms and you give them examples of how people do this, right? It is possible so that they understand the concept.
So it's not cheating. I tend to jump from, let's talk about monetization, right? If that correlates to products, then great, but so that's not, so it's okay. So it sounds like that's a logical step to get people to talk about really what's important first, and then figure out how they actually go about achieving that.
And I can tell you, and maybe I did a poor job in my example, right? But you would show them an example of how you get to more cost, how a higher customer or better customer experience really eventually translates into higher revenue and higher profit.
It should, right?
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
if it doesn't, right, then there's something off, right, there's something else.
So examples, and I give you a couple of examples, right? You look at Salesforce.com, you look at Amazon, right? These are companies that make higher revenue. Again, for Amazon, it's not necessarily profit at this point, but for Salesforce, it is, right? So it's all based on better customer experience. Any other questions, guys?
Talk a little bit more about the value stream, the Kaizen burst. So do you use the Kaizen events to actually envision the future state? Is that what
So this correlates to enterprise Scrum, right? So a cycle is a cycle of improvement. So you would choose which value list items are going to be implemented in this cycle. And the reason I like the term Kaizen burst is because it's really about releasing a better version of the customer segment value stream. So you're taking the what is as is right now, and then if you implement some value list items, right, you will get to the next version. Any other questions, guys? Well, thanks for coming to the presentation, guys. I hope you enjoy it. I hope the concepts are useful. Again, we're really excited. We are apparently still the first business agility framework. I personally am delighted with having this full story in terms of different types of agile management, if you will, overlapping with each other. You should know a little bit. I'll give you the last bit of history on this. I've been writing a book titled Enterprise Scrum Agile Management for the 21st Century for some 7 years. A couple of years ago, I decided to change the title to Business Agility for the 21st Century. What I didn't realize until putting everything together is that it really takes a lot of agile management combined. Today, you stop doing agile management, agile lead, or begin doing agile management, leadership, portfolios, transformations. And now for company, business unit, customer segments, is all this mass of agile management combined. So anyhow, thanks for coming. We're still serving drinks outside, so please stay with us a few more minutes. Thanks, guys.